The Scion Collective is the quintessential late-game powerhouse faction of Battlezone combat commander, bringing powerful but expensive alien weapons and technology to bear against their enemies. With their heritage descended from the fabled Black Dog Squadron, the Scions are capable of devastating hit-and-run attacks and unorthodox tactics capable of crippling their foes and overwhelming their enemies. Similar to the ISDF, you want to build anywhere between 4 to 6 harvesters and follow a similar pathing for scavenging and deployment order. For your first harvester, once built, you will want to order it to scavenge right away and collect the loose scrap that is near your base. If there is no loose scrap near your base, you will want to send it to the nearest loose scrap pile. For your second harvester, you will want to plant this on your nearest available base pool immediately. Once you have enough scrap, build your third harvester and send it to your second pool. By this time, your first harvester should have finished grabbing the loose scrap in your base, so make sure to send it to mid to get the loose scrap that is there. For your fourth harvester, you will want to send that to your third safest scrap pool. Any harvesters after the fourth are up to you as the commander to determine what you want them to do. You can try and secure the mid pool, or send them near active combat locations to gather loose scrap. For the Scion Collective, you ideally want to secure at least 3 to 4 scrap pools early, and in certain circumstances, it can be worth it to deploy your harvesters onto pools early to secure more passive scrap income rather than the quick but temporary income from loose scrap. During this time, as you deploy and build harvesters, make sure you place nav beacons near any pools on the map to make it easier to send your harvesters to pools further away from your base, and to later coordinate your army. After you have secured enough scrap and scrap pools, you will want to create a builder. Much like the ISDF constructor, this bipedal friend will be constructing all our buildings and upgrades. Once this little guy is up and waddling, you will want to save up 60 scrap and then send him over to upgrade your base excavator to increase the pace of your passive scrap collection, just like you would if you were playing ISDF. Now, this is where the Scions really start to play differently compared to the ISDF. The Scion Collective doesn't need to build power generators, as each building comes with a lung attached to each building that is constructed. These lungs are how the Scions power their buildings, and if a lung is destroyed, only that building it was attached to is taken offline. Unlike with the ISDF, where losing a power generator could take your whole base offline. The Scions can also build freely, without the need to build adjacent to any other buildings or the Matriarch, which can open up a lot of tactical and strategic options for a Scion commander. The next difference with the Scion Collective is the ability for their hovering vehicles to morph, changing their weapons from the combat variants to the assault variants and allowing their ships to slowly heal while morphed. The last thing of note for the Scions is the unique modification slot, the shield hardpoint. All hover-capable Scion ships are capable of equipping a shield system, which reduces incoming damage, effectively increasing the health of all your combat vehicles. The downside to this flexibility, however, is the early game weakness of the Scion Scout and the default weapons of most Scion ships. The Scion Scout is not suited to direct combat, and the default plasma cannon is a slow-moving projectile, making it hard to aim. Because of this, the Scion Scout has a difficult time in a fight, especially against the more aggressively equipped ISDF Scout. However, when morphed, the Scion Scout can do incredible damage against buildings, especially against Scavengers and Extractors. One Scout can easily destroy a lone Scavenger, and 2 Scouts can destroy an Extractor, making the Scion Scout fairly effective at hit-and-run attacks on enemy infrastructure. Once you've upgraded your base Extractor, you have a few different ways to build depending on how well you've handled the early game Scavenger scrambles and engagements. The Scions have a bit more flexibility with their build order and build placements. The most consistent build order where you haven't come under too much pressure early on is to build a kiln for 60 scrap and then upgrade your kiln into a forge for another 40 scrap. Afterwards, you'll want to build a dower so you have a repair and resupply pad. This early build order will unlock the sentry as well as the gauze gun and the stasis shield, and will give you a fast ship that, when modified this way, can do very good damage against ISDF scouts and missile scouts. This will also unlock the warrior for use, but you will want to refrain from building one right away, as the default warrior loadout isn't very effective for its cost. You can also change this build order up to go into kiln, into dower, into forge. While this will delay getting a strong mid-game unit built and modified, it will allow your thugs and units to repair earlier, and it can help you save scrap on building service pods. However, If you're coming under extreme enemy pressure and need some breathing room, you may want to build a Gunspire first. For 75 scrap, the Gunspire is a devastating and towering and defensive emplacement that will wipe out most early game ships in a couple of shots. Dubbed the Peace and Safety Spire, an early game Gunspire placed correctly can prevent an aggressive enemy from destroying your upgraded base pool or rushing your base. The Gunspire does not have any research or tech requirements to build and can be built once you have a builder and scrap needed to construct it. However, due to the hefty cost of building a Gunspire, you will likely fall behind in your race up the tech tree. After you have built your dower and upgraded your kiln to a forge, you'll want to build an antenna for 60 scrap. The antenna is like the relay bunker in that it gives you access to the Scion Sky-Eye satellite at the terminal within the antenna building, and will also unlock the Lancer to be built. However, we want to upgrade the antenna to an overseer array for an additional 80 scrap. This will give you perfect minimap and radar information once it is built, but the real reason we want to build it is because it unlocks the endgame weapon for the Scions, the arc cannon. You will also unlock the Archer deployable artillery unit. After you have your overseer array built, you will want to save up another 60 scrap and build your stronghold. This functions almost exactly like the ISDF armory and will unlock all the rest of the Scion arsenal, most notably the absorption shield and the blink special equipment. This will also unlock your final vehicles, the Titan and the Mauler for production. With your tech tree complete, you can now go modify your warriors into undisputed best vehicles in the game. However, there is one more building left, the Jammer. The Jammer, as its name suggests, jams enemy radar and hides you from anything in its radius from the enemy minimap, as well as prevents enemy commanders from targeting and issuing commands to their units in it. While fragile, a jammer placed in your base or with Gunspires at a choke point can give you a huge tactical advantage. The building isn't unique either, meaning you can build as many as you can afford. On the surface, the Scions have a lot less weaponry and equipment compared to the ISDF. However, with the ability for Scion ships to morph, each weapon can change drastically and allow any of your ships to take on multiple roles, all at the press of a button. When you combine this with the versatility of the shield slots that all hover-based vehicles have and some of the most powerful special equipment available, the Scion Collective can end up as the strongest faction late game. Surviving to the late game is the struggle for every Scion commander, and knowing how to modify your ships is basically required if you wish to succeed as a Scion commander. Here I'll provide a few different loadouts for your thugs, army and yourself, as well as when they are capable of being built, and show you some useful pieces of equipment to keep track of. But before I can recommend any loadouts, I need to talk about the Scion's shields. Shields are a unique equipment drop available to all hovering Scion ships that provide situational damage reduction from incoming attacks. These shields come in 3 flavors: stasis, deflection, and absorption. The stasis shield is your middle of the road all around shield that reduces all incoming damage by about 10% from any weapon source. It's versatile, simple, with no glaring strengths or weaknesses. Meanwhile, the deflection and absorption shields will give around a 30% damage reduction from specific weapon types, but will increase damage taken from weapons they are not designed to counter. Deflection shields are designed to counter impact or kinetic based weapons, such as stabber rounds, missiles, and chain guns, while the absorption shield is designed to counter energy based weapons. This is damage from plasma cannons, the laser, and blast cannons. So, if you have information about what weapons your enemy is deploying, it can be worthwhile to swap the shields on your ships for you and your teammates to counter what the enemy team is doing. The first loadout to look at is the Gauze Sentry. The Sentry can be created once you have the kiln constructed, and this loadout created once you have the forge and dower built. You'll want to modify this to have the Gauze Rifle, Seeker Mine, and with Stasis Shield. The Gauze Sentry is a great harassment and dogfighting ship that moves almost as fast as the Scion and ISDF scouts. The Gauze Rifle has a decent fire rate and effective range out to 150 meters, 200 meters when morphed into assault mode. The Seeker Mines are a great anti-pursuit and harassment tool if you're capable of aerial hovering. The Stasis Shield is just a flat damage reduction that will help keep this fragile sentry alive. Your next loadout to consider is the Multi-Lock Lancer, which can be built and modified once the antenna has been constructed. At 60 scrap, this unit is great to build for an AI army and is capable of shutting down enemy missile scouts in direct fights due to having a low imaging stat, meaning the ISDF Shadower missile will take a long time to lock onto the Lancer. As its name would suggest, you will want to equip this ship with the multi-lock missiles and deflection shield, and once you have built your stronghold, you can also give it blink to remedy a Lancer's slow movement speed. In the late game, you can also change the shield over to an absorption shield once the enemy starts to field blast cannons and lasers to reduce the damage from the harder hitting energy weapons. The multi-lock missiles morphs into the Wasp cruise missile when the launcher switches to assault mode. The Wasp missile is capable of a large amount of area damage and is great for forcing an enemy to either make the choice of targeting you or the cruise missile itself. While the Lancer is a unit that's fit for an AI army, the best unit for you and your human teammates is the Arc Warrior, aka the God Tank. This is the undisputed best main battle tank in the game. In the hands of a capable player, an Arc Warrior is capable of ambushing and destroying ISDF blast tanks and has the ammo and armor for longer engagements. While the Warrior can be built once you have a forge, this build can be fully modified once you have a stronghold, though a weaker version can be modified earlier once the Overseer is constructed. At 65 scrap, the Arc Warrior is equipped with an arc cannon, gauze rifles, blink and absorption shields. The arc cannon is a Scion's best cannon weapon, a hit scan weapon capable of heavy damage out to 180 meters, and the gauze rifle is great to use while your arc cannon recharges. With blink, the Warrior is capable of being nearly anywhere at any time, allowing you to teleport into and out of combat, provided you have enough ammo to use it. This build makes the enemy players constantly check their radar and is very capable of zoning an enemy. However, due to the ship's status of being a juggernaut in the battle zone, you need to be aware of enemy players trying to snipe you and your teammates. A stolen Warrior can turn the tide of the match against you if it's in the enemy hands. For other utility builds, you will also want to consider modifying your scout with an arc cannon, proxy mines and stasis shield. This build gives you another cheap harassment unit in the late game capable of avoiding most direct engagements and supporting your warriors from range while also being fast enough to avoid counterattacks and ambushes. You'll also want to equip your empty scouts of arc cannons as well for when you need to get your thugs back into ships as quickly as possible. The Titan assault tank you don't want to modify. At 90 scrap already, this heavily armoured tracked vehicle will be your go-to unit if you need to brute force your way into the enemy base. Armed with 2 arc cannons and a pair of ion guns as backup, this assault tank is great at defending faraway pools if it is supported with a Scion healer unit or for sieging the enemy base. The last unit you'll want to consider building is the Archer. At 65 scrap, this unit is unique in that it acts like a flying turret that, when deployed, turns into an artillery platform capable of launching mortar rounds from incredible distances, letting you siege an enemy base from a safe distance. However, they are very fragile and slow, so you want to make sure you have something guarding these units as they are basically defenseless. You also don't want to modify the ship either, as the default Howitzer is the best weapon in the mortar class of weapons and is what gives the Archer its incredible range. And that's the end of the tutorial for the Scion Collective. There was a lot covered in this video, so I'll go over a few cliff notes for you to keep in mind. 1. Scion's a weak early game. Try to avoid dogfights against enemy players unless you either outnumber your opponent or are able to ambush them. Instead, focus on going after enemy scavengers to deny your enemy scrap. The plasma stream does a lot of damage to heavily armoured units and buildings. 2. If your base has been harassed early into the match, don't be afraid to build a gunspire for peace and safety. If placed correctly, a gunspire will prevent harassment attacks on your builders and base pool, as well as giving your team a safe place to retreat to if they are being chased. Just remember that to build a gunspire, you will need to be in control of at least 2 scrap pools. 3. Your main goal is to unlock the arc cannon. This weapon will turn the tide of the game into your favour. It hits almost as hard as the ISDF blast cannon and can be equipped on the Scion Scout and Empty Scout. The arc cannon makes the Empty Scout one of the most cost-effective, high-damaging ships in the game. 4. Once you have Arc Warriors, you need to watch out for player snipers. We're not kidding when we say that the Arc Warrior is the god tank of Battlezone. It has high mobility with blink and a high amount of effective health thanks to its shields. Enemy players will go to extreme lengths to steal one from you, so always be careful after you eject an enemy player out of their ship. This goes for the players and lancers as well. And 5. Don't be afraid to swap your shields out if needed. Absorption shield is great for reducing the damage from ISDF blast cannons, but chain guns and shadow missiles will hit you for a lot more. If you're unsure on what the enemy is using, stasis shield is the safer choice. And that's it. You now have all the knowledge you need to dominate your enemy as a Scion Collective. If you found this video helpful, make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.